Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful evening. I enjoyed listening to all of the speakers' remarks, and particularly the keynote speaker, Preet Bahara. Just want to conclude with just say the following for a few minutes. America is a country of immigrants, a land built and developed by waves of immigrants who came to our shores from every corner of the world since the founding of our country more than 2 centuries ago. Immigrants from Asia have been, are, and will be an integral force driving America's growth and success. Beginning more than 150 years ago and continuing until this very moment, immigrants from Asia have made new lives in the United States. And they came here fleeing oppression or poverty. They came here seeking freedom and opportunity, a better life for their children, many of whom are here tonight. Most of these immigrants came with very little money and very few possessions, sometimes only the clothing that they were wearing. Once these immigrants arrived in America, they worked hard to survive. But in fact, they thrived. They created, they integrated, and they innovated. Their drive to succeed served themselves, their families, and everyone in our land. The secret to America's success is immigrants who come here every year and reinvigorate our culture, our economy, and our morality. Of course, the they that I refer to is really many of you in this room, your parents and your grandparents. Now, once Asian immigrants arrived in the United States, they often found that there was a gap between America's ideals and America's practices, between America's promise and its reality. And this gap has existed for a long time in our country's history. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course, the values expressed in the Declaration of Independence represent some of our highest ideals as a nation. But at the time this declaration was written, in 1776, a large gap existed between those ideals and our country's actions. African Americans were slaves, women could not vote, just to name a few. Now our nation, with the help of immigrants, has worked very hard to narrow that gap. In the 1860s, we fought a civil war to narrow that gap. In 1920, we passed the 19th Amendment giving women the vote to narrow that gap. However, while the gap narrowed, it still remained. During World War II, we interned thousands of our Japanese American citizens. 2 of those interned, one of whom is here with us tonight, Norm Mineta and Mike Honda, grew up to become congressmen from the Bay Area, and they narrowed the gap and moved us closer to our founding principles. Thank you, Congressman Hill. Many Asian immigrants landed on the West Coast, right here in California, where they encountered this gap. In 1854, in the case of People versus Hall, the California Supreme Court held that Chinese Americans have no right to testify against whites. This ruling freed Mr. Hall, who had been convicted of murdering Mr. Ling Sing, a Chinese miner. 3 Chinese witnesses had testified to the murder, but the California Supreme Court's ruling overturning this conviction was based on solid precedent. For you see, in 1850, the California Code of Criminal Procedure stated that no black or mulatto person or Indian shall be allowed to give evidence in favor of or against a white man. Could Mr. Singh's family imagine what today's California Supreme Court looks like with 3 Asian American justices? The gap is not gone, but it's getting smaller as Asian Americans continue to achieve and ascend and move our country closer to making our ideals into reality. So I have tremendous respect, affection, and admiration for what Asian Americans have accomplished. I also like prosecutors a lot. District attorneys, attorneys generals, even federal prosecutors, like U.S. Attorney Preet Bahara. But as some of you know, I like federal prosecutors so much that I go to bed with one every night. same one, my wife. Amber, who's the Deputy Chief of the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Jose. She's, I think, waiting home for me tonight. So when you combine Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders with prosecutors, you get NAPIPA, and that is a combination that I love. Shortly after I was elected district attorney in 2011, Charlie Wong asked me if I would support the creation of an organization called NAPIPA that would do the following: encourage Asian Americans to become prosecutors, help all prosecutors better serve the entire community, including the Asian American community, and improve the criminal justice system by advocating for fairness, equality, and justice for crime victims and criminal defendants. This was an offer that I could not refuse, and I told Charlie yes, absolutely, 100% yes. Now, because I knew some of the prosecutors who formed NAPIPA, I had high hopes for what it could become. But in reality, NAPIPA has exceeded all expectations and accomplished so much in so little time. There are now, as you've heard, 5 chapters. In just the last year, NAPIPA has done some of the following things: presented prosecutor panels at Loyola Law School and Berkeley School of Law, co-sponsored a meeting about working in the United States Attorney's Office held at the U.S. District Court in San Francisco, conducted domestic violence training for AACI, Asian Americans for Community Involvement. The training was conducted for AACI domestic violence counselors in San Jose. We noticed in our county that the percentage of Asian Americans reporting domestic violence was incredibly low compared with the number of Asian Americans in our community, and we realized that we needed to do more outreach to this community to better serve it. And I'm very happy for NAPIPA's help in stepping in and reaching out to that community. In addition, NAPIPA has co-sponsored a judicial appointments panel with Josh Groban, Governor Brown's judicial appointments advisor, and of course, last year's successful scholarship dinner and our dinner tonight. I would say, and I believe very strongly, that NAPIPA is helping our whole country close the gap and move our country closer to its founding principles and its highest ideals. If NAPIPA were a startup, you should invest, because the ROI is priceless and the best is yet to come. From strength to strength, thank you, and I'll see you next year.